Hey guys, Snoopy here. Today we're looking at another leader from the Leaders and Lore expansion pack to Arcs, and we have the Agitator. So the Agitator has two abilities. So first, Firebrand. When you copy or pivot in order to tax, you gain one weapon along with the taxed resource. And then Irregular. If a rival attacks you in battle and rolls an intercept icon, they do not take hits from fresh defending ships. Instead, they take one hit per weapon icon you have from cards and resources. Then you discard one weapon resource you have. You start with a fuel and a material, and then you have a normal startup. So 3 ships in A in a city, and B is a little different. So you do have a starport, but 4 ships in B, and then C is just 2 ships. So initial thoughts. Firebrand, so similar to Mythic Leader and the Fuel Drinker. So copy or pivot to tax, you get a weapon along with it. So it's not psionic, it's not fuel, it's a weapon. So weapons are not the best resource, but they're not the worst. And so they don't give you an additional thing to do. They just allow you to change what you could do on your turn. So I spin a weapon, I don't get something from it. I just get to change my actions to allow me to battle. And so, but your second ability gives you another thing, and this is where the regular ability could be a downside or it could be a positive side. So when you are defending, you use fresh ships normally in arcs to kind of as a deterrent. So if they're trying to raid you, you can use your fresh ships to kind of fight back. If they get an intercept hit, they're all going to do a damage back to the attacker. With irregular, that's not going to happen. So if they moved in to your starting city, has 3 ships, and they raid it, they're not going to take any intercept damage when you start the game as Agitator. So they could use assault dice with abandon because there's no intercept risk. Let's say you get a weapons guild card or a weapons resource. Now it's 1 intercept hit or 2 intercept hit. So really it's not until you get to 3, 4, possibly 5 where the intercept risk is worth hesitating over. And so that's where irregular could be a downside, is that you don't start protected like everyone else. You actually are very vulnerable to raids and assault dice. However, you can have a very flimsy city that's not protected by ships, but because you have a bunch of weapon guild cards and a bunch of weapon resources, it actually is defended. Because if they roll an intercept on that raid, their whole fleet could get wiped out in 5 hits, or 4 hits even if it's just 2 ships. So that's where it starts off as a big liability, but in Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, definitely Act 5, it could be a very real danger if people are raiding you or using assault dice against you because you have built up weapon resources and weapon guild cards. So overall, the Agitator is interesting. I think it has a good positive ability, and the negative ability can be turned into a strength if you are given time. But because it's a liability at the beginning, you can definitely get punished. So something to keep in mind with Table Talk and how you are starting out at the beginning, because you are very, very weak to start. All right, what about lore cards for agitators? So you have a couple options here. So I'm highlighting 3. But because we're starting off in a vulnerable position, we want to think about maybe something like hidden harbors, where you always build ships fresh, even if your opponent's controlling your starports. And then if you're defending in battle, the attacker cannot collect raid dice if you have a fresh defending starport. So if they are trying to raid you at your starports, because, if they destroy the starport, there's no triggering of outrage. They can't, because they have to get to the starport first. It's not the biggest deterrent because they could just roll assault dice and not be afraid of intercept damage if they did that one, but is something that is a deterrent, and that's kind of what we're looking for. To start is, hey, don't hit me first. I'm not going to bother you if you don't bother me. We can look at that in Act 2, Act 3, Act 4. But Act 1, let's just be peaceable. Another card to think about is living structures. And so this changes your build and repair actions. So nurture, you can tax a loyal city with a build action, or prune, you can replace a starport with a city, or vice versa with a repair action. And so that lets you to kind of be more flexible and change out your cities for starports. It also lets you get more resources more easily, because if you're taxing with a build action, you do get the Firebrand ability because you did tax. That keyword is triggered by the nurture ability, so you get a weapon along with it. So that's getting more juice out of that ability for Agitator. And then if we are using weapons and we are battling, then Warlord is going to be declared either by us or someone else, and that lets us tax cities again, so we get more value out of our Firebrand ability. And then importantly, we can discard this to clear our weapons outrage. And so if for some reason weapons is outrage on our part, then we can get rid of that so we can still use our weapons as needed. But what's nice is that even if we have weapon outraged, we still have a use for it with our regular ability when no one else may have a use for it. If the Vox card is played to get everyone to outrage weapons, we would still have a use for weapons later on when everyone would not. What about the court deck? And so I'm highlighting 4 cards here, just because there is a Vox card that, if you're not prepared, can ruin your game. So let's talk about that card first. So outrage spreads. You may choose an outrage type. Each player, even you, must outrage that type. Discard this card. So if your rival, your opponent, picks this and picks weapons, and you have to discard all your weapon guild cards and all your weapon icons, and this is Act 3, Act 4, even Act 5, you are now a sitting duck. And the reason I say that is because you now can be raided without fear of intercept hits. They can use assault dice against you to whittle you down without fear of intercept hits, even if you have the most ships on the map. And so your defense is your weapon icons, both in guild cards and your resources. And so if that's outraged, it can really ruin your day. So if you see this in the court, try to secure it yourself. Try to talk to your opponents to see if you can get them to outrage something else, because that will ruin your game. Possibly you can get away with it. Possibly you can survive and win a different ambition in the last bit, but you will be an easy raid target otherwise if you have no weapons at the end of the game. Now, what about the guild cards? We want to highlight Galactic Bards because if we're going to pivot to tax, then we can look at a guild card that helps us get another benefit to that. So this Galactic Bards lets us pivot and also declare an ambition, or we can surpass and declare another ambition. And so this is really important in the end of the game when all the ambitions are scoring more points, so we can have more control over what's going to matter to win in the Act 4, Act 5 of arcs. And then another card we want to think about are weapon cards, obviously. So we're going for weapon cards. So I think 2 that stand out would be Skirmishers. So after you roll in battle, you may re-roll skirmish dice up to your weapon icons. And then with Court Enforcers, you're going to capture rival agents from a card that has, in the court, that has fewer rival agents than your total weapon icons. So again, these cards are synchronizing with our irregular abilities. So we want to get weapon guild cards. We want to get weapon resources, and not to use them per se, is just hold on to them so that we are defended well. We have a deterrent from being attacked. And so having skirmishers, having court enforcers just plays into that and helps our ability to just have a better advantage when we're attacking or when we're taking captives in the court, just because we are doing what we already would be doing because of our irregular ability. So these are the cards to keep in mind. And again, there are always great guild cards and great Vox cards, regardless of your leader. But if you're thinking about what synergizes or what to be aware of, then these are the cards I would highlight. So overall, I would say the Agitator is a very strong leader. I would definitely put him in the A tier, probably not S tier, but I would say Agitator is a strong leader. If you don't have a great lore card to help protect you in the early game, perhaps you may want to consider something else. But I would consider Agitator a strong leader. You get a lot of resources when you pivot or copy. Your irregular downside can turn into a positive, which is unique for most leaders. That's not really possible. So I would say that with the added ship in B, with the Firebrand ability, I would say that Agitator is definitely a leader worth picking first if you don't have a great lore card to pick. Or if you just don't like the leaders, just pick Agitator and just trust that you're going to get a good lore card to boot because you could be aggressive with weapons. It's something to think about. You could go with the aggressive strategy, but you don't have to. Again, your weapons act as a defense and a deterrent for you, and so that's something that you can do other strategies besides just being aggressive because your weapons can be used to attack or they can just stay with you and just serve as a defense. That's what I think about the Agitator. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks.